Welcome back to Strength Happens. Today, we're talking about something that can feel surprisingly emotional for families like ours summertime.
Summer has that image attached to it. When you think about raising kids, things like camps and vacations, or just hanging out in the pool in the backyard, or just even sleepovers at friends' houses. But for families raising kids with medical issues or disabilities, summertime and those summertime activities can look very different and can be planned very different. Sometimes summer actually brings more stress than rest, therapy schedules that have to go year round, infusions that have to go year round at the
Oh,
hospital. And when your kid wants to have that time with friends and you're thinking, I still have to take them to their medical appointments. And then when you think of camps and all these activities, you have to think of accessibility concerns.
uh,
So that's kind of a lot of the differences we're going to talk about today and how summer looks a little different.
when people think about summer, they're thinking kids running around the neighborhood,
Oh,
the swim parties, your family vacation planning, camps, and just making those summer memories. And those images are everywhere on social media, on every commercial on TV during this time of year.
hmm.
And they're beautiful, and you definitely want to do those things. But for so many families raising children with disabilities or complex medical needs, those pictures can also be a painful reminder of how different our reality is.
Absolutely. The truth is, we don't always talk about that part. We celebrate the fun moments, but we don't always talk about that quiet disappointment that comes with realizing your family's summer isn't going to look like what you pictured. Even traveling on a plane, that was something we couldn't do a lot of times, or you just can't afford their immune systems being compromised. And it's hard that it's real disappointment.
Yeah, I don't think I even realized I was feeling that during that time. It was just our life, our everyday experiences. I know it's hard to explain. You just adapt.
You have your own normal, so you don't, and
Mhm.
I think that's why we liked hanging out with your family because you had very similar needs where, just go into your zero entry pool, the kids loved it and had fun in
Yeah.
the summer, and we didn't have to worry about going to summer camps or traveling by airplane. We could just go somewhere where people had the same understanding.
Yeah. And just knowing that throughout the day, you have to give medications or use a
Or pull
feeding
out the
tube.
feeding tube
Yeah.
and it was so normal, and my kids knew what a feeding tube was, and so if you did Morgan's tube, they weren't
Mhm.
scared, it was just she's like Callie. So it was just such normalcy. There were some times in our life, in our families, where it was painful, like, we had all planned to fly out for my grandfather's 90th birthday, and it happened to be the time of H1N1, and we just couldn't risk
Mhm.
we went and literally had to make an appointment with the immunologist and say, "Hey, it's my grandfather's 90th, all the family's flying in town. Is this safe?"
Yeah.
And you're consulting physicians about a family vacation, and he's like, "No."
Yeah.
So John stayed, I flew out. He stayed with the kids, and his parents took them for a smaller vacation that was
Mhm.
memorable in Florida. And there's other times when we worked really hard to normalize it for our kids so that they look back and they didn't really see how different their summer was from other people.
Yeah.
You try your best to.
Yeah. And it's funny, once we started talking about this episode, I feel like all these summer memories came
Mhm.
flooding back.
Super cool.
Yeah, I remember when Morgan was maybe 5 or 6, every spring, my friends would start talking about the summer camps they were all signing up for, what activities everyone was gonna do together, like the Vacation Bible School, the YMCA had a sports camp, let's all do it with our kids. And
Mhm.
I'd listen to the conversations and think, "That sounds like so much fun, but that's not gonna work for us, I don't think." We could still meet friends to go swimming, but even something that simple took so much planning.
Mhm.
'Cause even at the Y where it had all those zero entry pools and very shallow, I still had to think about how I was gonna safely get Morgan in and out of the pool, follow her around where
Watch
the
the
twins were
little
still
ones.
toddling. Yeah, so I also had to worry about shade. Was there gonna be enough shade
Mhm.
because medication she's on would make her more susceptible to sun? There are just so many extra little things that we had to consider that other families never even had to think about.
It's a hard one.
Yeah, and I remember in the early years, I struggled a lot with trying to fit in with everyone. I so wanted to be able to participate in all the normal activities, but I really just found I wasn't ready to let go that Morgan might like those things too, but would she really get anything out of it? So I would bring her and try, and I quickly realized that she needed something more or different.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, there weren't a lot of options. And with 3 little ones, I didn't have the same flexibility that everyone else had.
Yeah. And
So, it came to the point that most of the time, Morgan's activities revolved around her therapies and later
mhm.
on summer school programs. And I had to learn that that was enough. She enjoyed those things. I learned as her siblings got older that I would have some more normal experiences with them. But our summers as a family looked a lot different than most of our friends, but we learned that we were okay with that eventually.
Yeah, it is a process. I think we're gonna talk next month about grief, but just to touch on slightly, there
Mhm.
was a grief for me of I always dreamed of being a mom and taking my kids to
Yeah.
Gymboree and doing summer camps and dropping them at the Y while I worked out and got fit, and
Yep.
every time I dropped my kid off at the Y, they got sick. But those things of I had to think and process differently for the needs of my kids, and all mine
Mhm.
were immune compromised. Neely probably not till later in life, so she had a little more normalcy, but it was so hard. And it can be strangely emotional as a caregiver
Mhm.
because there is this image of what childhood summers are supposed to look like, and sometimes they're gonna look completely different, as is our case. I remember summers were nice because there were some good things. I didn't have to worry about schedules for school or the absences because my
Yeah.
kids missed a lot of school or homework or because, Hallie's learning disability, she really struggled with homework and it was such a fight sometimes. But I just didn't have the confidence in some of the summer programs that were around us
Mhm.
and their ability to deal with my kids' medical issues. And it wasn't their fault. They just weren't designed that way. One time, I did try to take Callie for swim lessons at a local YMCA, and I told the lifeguard and the private swim instructor she was immunocompromised, and we just wanted her safe in a pool, and we couldn't find anywhere
Mhm.
for her. And they're like, "Oh, we checked the pool levels. They're fine. Don't worry about it." They assured me they were great. She was in the hospital the next day with a serious infection. John went to
Wow.
that pool as soon as we were headed to the hospital. He test stripped it, and the chlorine was 0. And we went back and looked at the chart, and the chlorine was low when she went swimming, and they just didn't tell us. They didn't get it, and there are times like that where it's extremely dangerous for kids with
Mhm.
medical issues. So I mostly kept my kids at home from summer programs until we found Camp Boggy Creek, which we're gonna talk
Mm.
about today, which is a hole in the wall camp. Camp Boggy Creek is the one in Florida, there's one in Connecticut, they're all over the world, actually, and they're designed for kids with medical issues, and they have a doctor and a crash cart and infusions you can do there. So we found some normalcy for our kids who didn't have a normal life. The other thing was I found myself when my kids wanted to participate, I had to
Mhm.
participate. So
Yeah.
Hallie was in Girl Scouts, and they did do camps over the summer, and it was a wonderful experience for her because she went canoeing, and she went
Mhm.
fishing, and bonfires, and flag retirement ceremonies, and she had 2 amazing Girl Scout leaders, Tracy and Michelle, but they're like, "You need to go with us because she does
Yeah.
have a Metaport or a feeding tube, and if there's an emergency, we want you to feel comfortable, but we want Hallie to feel comfortable where she can enjoy herself." And we made the most of it, we came up with
Yeah.
Camp 5, Look Alive, Everybody Will Survive, Do a Little Jive, and
Mhm.
so we brought a joy to camping, but those are some hard times, and you have to balance
Yeah.
that for your kids.
I definitely agree. When you mentioned that you would have to participate,
Mhm.
you become submersed in
Yeah.
whatever it is that they're doing because of safety. You desperately want them to be able to feel normal and feel like they belong. And if that's what it was going to take, that's what we're going to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed when the summer schedule became less stressful, just letting them sleep in, not having to rush. What were some of the hurdles you remember facing as you headed into the summer?
Probably the biggest issue is heat. I was
Mm.
raising 3 kids with heat-related illness, among other things, and finding activities in Florida at the time was really difficult, but we used our own pool all the time, and inviting kids to our house because it was safer and we knew where our supplies were and we didn't have to take medication, that kinda thing.
Mhm.
But then finding other indoor things where immunocompromised kids weren't gonna be at risk because it's just kids being kids and germs are all
Yeah.
around. We did do bowling and bounce castles, that indoor bounce place.
Oh, yeah.
I think other parents thought I was crazy. We'd have hand sanitizer after every run, but you have to do that when they don't build their own immune system.
Right.
Sometimes we did laser tag or ice skating with the littles, but Hallie physically couldn't do those things, and Neely and B could, so that was difficult. So a lot of times it took more work for me to find activities that we could all do together, or we had Camp Grammy, where my mom
Yeah.
really did those things. If B had to go to an infusion in the summer and the kids are home, I'd
Mhm.
drive up the night before, drop the kids off with my mom, and then I would have B to myself for an infusion day, and then I'd go up afterwards, or my mom would host a camp at her house because we knew it was safe. I do remember, oh my god, my mom's gonna die, Mama Donna. One time, B was a baby, probably less than a year and had an infusion, and I took the kids up to my mom's, and when you're in Florida, the kids leave their shoes in the car all the time, so you just
Oh,
take them
yeah.
barefoot. We had stuff packed up, it was hot. I bring them into my mom's, I unload them. She goes, "Where's their shoes?" I go, "Let me go grab some Crocs out of the car." I go to the car, there's no shoes. They had cleaned out the car the day before, totally
Mhm.
forgot. So she's like, "You brought children with no shoes," and they were staying for, like, 2 or 3 days. And I was
Oops.
like, "Oops." So I go, I gotta get B home and get some sleep before infusion." So I left, and my poor mom had to put the kids in the car, go to a Walmart, threw both kids in the
Yep.
cart because they had no shoes, and she's like, "You made me look like an awful Grammy." And so they went through and each got to pick out a pair of slippers and a pair of sandals. And Neely was, like, 3 years old and into Madagascar, the movie, and got those god awful, ugly zebra slippers with the
Oh my
zebra
gosh.
head. And Hallie, of course, got princess or something pretty, but it was so bad, and she wore those for, like, 2 years, it was hideous. But it brought some of those good summer memories
Yeah.
because of medical issues we had. It created different memories, but we try to make it as positive as possible. How about you in summer?
It's hard to try not to compare what your summer is gonna be like to everyone else's, and if I'm being honest, there were times I was jealous, not because someone else's kids were going to camp or they were going on a certain vacation. I wasn't necessarily jealous of what they were doing, I was just jealous of how easy it was. It
Mhm,
seemed in my eyes. To them, it probably may not have seemed so easy, but to me, they could wake up, throw on some sunscreen in a bag, and just go. Where
mm.
everything for us took planning. We had to think through medications, accessibility, fatigue. There were so many extra layers, and it sometimes felt really exhausting. Did you ever feel that way too? Like it wasn't the activity you're missing, it was really just the ease of being able to do something?
Always.
Mm,
I always remember you having twins and thinking, "Oh, that's so much harder with twins," and medical on top of it. So you kinda had a double layer, 4 kids, twins, and then kids with medical issues. And so I felt like your family was normal to me, so I kind of, like, loved that aspect. But yeah, it was hard not to compare to that. We would come to your house, like I said, when the kids were little and feel like you were fully accessible for us and there was no
mhm,
judgment. And I think that I always felt worried when the kids were little that with Hallie's feeding tube, other people were going to stare and it made the other
mhm,
kids self conscious, but they knew they could go to your house and that happened there too. So it kind of took some of the pressure off. And Mama Donna hosted a fairy camp for us and sleepovers where all the cousins would go.
oh, that's
And
fun.
it was super cute. She had all the girls, and she would give them each a big terracotta pot, and they'd have fairies there, and my girls could
Mm,
spend the night before and the night after just to give me a break, or she'd plan that when B had an infusion or
mm,
something. But it was just some camp type activities where they'd roast s'mores because they
mm,
weren't going to the YMCA or sleepaway camps the same way.
yeah.
Um, did you ever find normalcy in your summer activities or
I think The summers that our kids spent together were probably some of my favorite memories. We used to set up the little craft station, we'd bake with them, we'd set up a water table outside. But we could do these activities in a safe environment, and they still got that social aspect because they had friends over. Because I remember early on remembering, I wish that Morgan could had sleepovers because that was such a
Mm.
girly kind of thing to do. Your first sleepover is such a big deal.
At somebody's
Um,
house, yeah.
yeah, and we couldn't even envision doing that. Even sleeping at my mom's house, it was just a lot between the feeding tubes, the medication, the cognitive delays, and just being in a safe environment that she knew where everything was because of her vision. So there was just multi-layered. But for us, I think I loved our pool at our house because we had built it
With her
specifically
in mind.
for needs in mind. So we did the zero entry, and it made a huge difference in accessibility for her,
Abs
um, because we had this like long bench in the back. I didn't even have to always go in with her. I could sit on the edge and she could navigate the shallow areas, and she could play and she could sit. I just wish we had incorporated that into the house we have now, because
Mm.
she was older when we moved here, a teenager, so she was taller. So we were like, "Oh, we probably don't need the zero entry anymore." But I regret not doing it. It was a huge mistake. We went on vacation last summer, and they had a zero entry pool at the resort, and she loved it. She was sitting, standing, and it was easier for me. So now I know to look for that when we travel.
Yeah. He's talking about travel and vacations now. I think one of the things I forgot to mention is financially, we just couldn't
Mhm.
afford vacations. When the
Yeah.
kids were little, John was the primary breadwinner. I worked part-time sometimes, and our medical bills were outrageous that we pay just in co-pays and max out of pocket and then things that aren't covered by
Yeah.
insurance, and we just couldn't even afford normal vacations. Like, our 3 main vacations as a family, I was gonna say as a family of 5, but Neely's was just the 4 of us, Hallie had already passed, was our kids' Make-A-Wish trips. That
Yeah.
was our opportunity because they were inclusive, because they were paid for, because they thought about their medical issues and incorporated accessibility, but we would have never been able to afford those things or have access to not waiting in lines in the heat of Florida,
Mhm.
because with Make-A-Wish, you go to the front of the line if it amusement parks and things like that. So that was a huge thing for us too. And now that the kids are older and John and I are both working full time, we have the luxury of being able to afford more. But it's sad that Hallie missed some of those memories.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember watching other families when the kids were young at camp
Mhm.
drop-offs and vacations, and we were just sitting there doing doctor's appointments. Because
Yep.
summer times where you see all the specialists, summer and Christmas
Right.
vacation, and we didn't take those normal family vacations, not just financially, but it's hard to travel with infusion supplies and suction machines and
Yeah.
feeding pumps. It was tough.
It can become very exhausting.
Yes.
And I always felt guilty dragging the kids along to Morgan's therapies. I would bring them back to the car and we'd put videos on. I'd bring tons of snacks, but her appointments were like 30 minutes or 45 minutes at max. So it was sometimes easier than waiting in the waiting room. They could be a little bit more rambunctious in the car. And then I would always try to reward them afterwards with a trip to the park or go for a sweet treat.
Yeah, a little
Um,
ice cream cone or something.
yeah, and by the end of the summer, you were just glad you all survived.
It's so true.
But looking back now, I realize our kids probably remember those little moments more than anything else. Did you find that to be true for your family too?
I really did. At some point, I realized our kids didn't need that Pinterest perfect summer,
Mm,
or they didn't see inside my head. They didn't know what was normal for
yeah,
me as a kid. They didn't know what other families were doing. They just
right.
needed moments where they felt safe, they felt included, and they felt loved. And we often did play on the pirate ship at All Children's Hospital in St. Pete, and we would go play out there. There'd be nobody else out there, but if we went through full day infusions or MRIs, we'd be at the hospital for 5 to
Mhm,
6 hours. I'd be like, "If you guys hang in there, we'll go to the, pirate ship and play," and then
mhm,
we grab a Happy Meal at McDonald's on the drive home, and to them, that was great. Like,
yeah.
they're not in school, they have to go to appointments anyway, and this way, they got McDonald's and a pirate ship.
Mhm.
So, we'd also jump in the pool and make s'mores over candlelight, on the kitchen table.
Mm,
And we found ways to make our normal summer with doctor appointments and therapy sessions fun, just like you said, especially in the summer. Even if it meant a
mhm.
trip to Build-A-Bear as a treat or making homemade milkshakes or something like that at home, we added and incorporated that sense of fun and summer excitement to some of our normal summer routines.
Yeah. I think creating a routine with some special treats built in were what made our summers fun and
Mhm.
memorable. The kids really looked forward to Friday night movie nights and Sunday morning jacuzzi time with their dad before he went to
Oh,
work.
I
Um,
love that.
I know it's funny just going back and thinking that how many really great memories that they did have.
Mhm.
And it makes me realize we didn't need to spend a lot of money to create those happy memories for them.
No, and some of those summer memories, that's how Neely learned to ride a bike. We were at your house and your twins were riding a bike. She goes, "I have to go home now." And I was like, "Why?" And she's like, "Just take me home now." And we went home and she's like, "They're younger than me and ride a bike." And Neely just rode it 50 times up and down
Well,
until she nailed
until
it.
they
But it was
get it.
because they were spending time together and that's what mattered.
Yeah, and the kids looked forward to those times, and
Mhm.
I think that it's those traditions that you create, the inside jokes, the little treats after a long day. Those little ordinary moments somehow became the memories that stuck.
And it doesn't cost a whole lot, right?
No,
Isn't that funny
no,
when you're in
it
the
costs
mid
creativity.
Yeah. It costs a lot of creativity, and it's funny because when you're in the middle of raising kids, you worry so much about giving them the perfect summer, the perfect back to school, the perfect everything, but
Mhm,
when you look back, it's rarely the big things that matter, it's those little memories.
mhm,
Like, we're planning Neely's wedding right now, right? And we're talking about the important people she wants there. She's like, "We have to invite all the Herities." And we just talked about sitting down when we talk about a family we're inviting to the wedding, we're talking
mhm.
about all those memories, and all these
Yeah,
ones you're bringing up are the ones she shared. She's like, "I remember Miss Janine always had great craft tables, and then we'd
mm,
have snacks out on the back porch, and then we could sit in the water with the little fountain or in their jacuzzi and jump off the
yeah,
side." And creative memories, you know?
yeah. I think we put way too much pressure on ourselves, more so than our kids ever did.
Oh, they were clueless. They just wanted to have fun and have friends to hang out with,
I
so
know. You know what I realized most when we were talking about all this?
What?
At the start of the episode, I was thinking about all the things we couldn't do in the summer, coming from that perspective. And somehow we spent,
We've
the
switched
last,
it.
20 minutes or so laughing about movie nights, Build-A-Bear, milkshakes, playing on a pirate ship.
Yeah. Isn't that nice that, even we can look back and you're right, I was thinking of all the things I couldn't do for my kids, but now that we start talking about it and bringing up those memories, the more you talk about it, it's nice that, we're also remembering the good that came out of that time.
Yeah.
'Cause I think for me, I just think about, like, how sick some of my kids were, and B always got
Mhm.
sick at holidays. We just passed the
Of
4th of
course.
July, and it was Hallie's last holiday. So those things are always hard for us now, but we try to approach it in a fun way. I seen Neely post on Instagram that she was out at a party having fun with her fiancé, and it was like, "Oh, we're still carrying on," we're still creating
Yeah.
memories. So I'm glad we see the good in it.
Yeah. But, as we're talking about all these little traditions, it reminds me that we were always looking for places where our families could just relax,
Mhm.
enjoy being together without having to explain our situation or worry if something was going to work for Morgan.
Yeah, and when the kids were little and they were dealing with medical issues, I think that's when my definition of a
Mhm.
successful summer really changed. Our kids didn't need everything their friends had. They just wanted to have fun, laugh, and have a good time, and, um, All Children's was hosting an immunology thing at the Don Cesar, and it was over 4th of July weekend, now that we're talking about 4th of
Oh.
July, and it's a pink castle, and they were looking for families from All Children's that they could host at this event, and all we had to
Mhm.
do was show up, and they'd pay for a few days at the Don Cesar, and again, we couldn't afford that when the kids were all little. I think they were 3, 6, and 9. And they said, "Hey, you're, like, one of the only families who responded, so we can give you a week at the Don
Mm.
Cesar." We got
Oh, wow.
7 nights, and John had to go back for work some, but I could take the kids to the pool, and we got the ice
Mhm.
cream bucket for dinner one night where they just ate a whole bucket of
Yeah.
ice cream, and they still talk about at the Pink Castle, and they're grown adults.
Yeah.
So, it's amazing that even in the medical community, we can find ways to have a fun summer. and that the
Yeah.
medical community offers that, whether it's through Boggy Creek or through a foundation within a hospital or through Make-A-Wish. Our kids can have that fun.
Yeah. Like you've said, for both our families, we were both able to access Camp Boggy Creek. But what's interesting is that we experienced it in completely different ways.
Absolutely. I know our first experience with Boggy Creek, I think Hallie was 11 and she was wearing a Tampa Bay Rays shirt. And she was so nervous. And Kelly, Tracy's daughter, was a nurse that week. And she's like, I'll keep an eye on her, blah, blah, blah. And she cried the first 2 days. The social worker and the nurses called and said, "She's having a real rough time, but we're gonna keep her going." And by day 3, they had a dance party that morning in the dining hall, and the rest of the time she was fine. Here's a kid who had never slept away from home, except
Hmm.
to the next door neighbors, and she went away for a whole week, never thought that was possible, and she did all these activities, and I picked her up. She talked for 2 hours on the way home, and Hallie was not a big talker, but and the
Yeah.
sense of self-confidence in her, it changed her life.
Yeah.
And then B went when they were 7 and Hallie was 12 or 13, somewhere around there, and B was totally different kid, "Drop me off, see ya, outta here," and Kelly was there that week too and was like, "B is eating 3 chicken sandwiches and the college kids can't even eat that much." They were joking about how funny it was, and then Neely started going, when she was immune compromised, and it was just such a beautiful experience for us. We also did a family camp one weekend, um, with B and Hallie. Neely had a soccer tournament, so we got to do several activities through Boggy Creek.
Well, it sounds like Boggy Creek became a big part of your family's story for many, many years.
It was a huge part of our story. Even after, Hallie died, the kids were scheduled all 3 kids were scheduled to go to
Mm.
Boggy Creek, actually the week of Hallie's funeral. So we had to call Boggy and say Hallie passed, and they had dealt with that before, because they deal with chronically sick kids, and they were very compassionate, and they said, "Take time for the funeral and time for your family, but if the kids wanna go to camp, we'll fit them in before the end of the summer." And, I asked the kids after the funeral, we took them to Disney World after the funeral for some normalcy, and then the week after that, they said, "We wanna go to Boggy," and we called them, like, 2 days before, they're like, "Done, bring them." And they
Wow.
had assigned a senior counselor for each kid to be with them the whole week, and B, was only 9, and there was this older guy, probably in his 60s, retired doctor who came back and volunteered, so they put
Oh,
him in a
nice.
cabin with a bunch of college counselors,
Yeah.
and he was assigned B and would take B to the dining hall, sneak him out early, and sneak sausage from the chef, and they'd put it on the hook, and we caught so much fish. It was like 22 fish or something ridiculous that still holds the camp record,
Wow.
but no one ever told them that the guy snuck them in to get sausage. And those memories, they still remember, and it brought some joy to a very difficult situation. So it really does. We actually almost spread Hallie's ashes at Boggy Creek, but I just wasn't ready to part with them at that time,
You
so
did a bench though, didn't you do a memorial bench or something?
we did something there, yes, and we
Yeah.
had the rock garden, we were able to put her name in the rock garden where
Yeah.
kids who pass and they have a naming ceremony where they do say all the kids who've passed who've attended Boggy Creek at the naming ceremony every year, so that's
Yeah, I
very
don't think I never knew that they had gone that summer.
yeah, I was like, "There's no way they're gonna wanna go," but they're kids, and they just wanted to feel like a kid again,
Yeah.
and that was one way for them to deal with their grief, but it also allowed John and I some personal time to really cry and deal with their
Privately.
own grief
Mhm.
privately without the kids around. Because you try and put that wall up when you don't want them to
Well, and
be
they weren't just caring for your kids, they were caring for your entire family, it sounds like.
oh, they absolutely the hole in the wall camps like Boggy Creek are some of the most phenomenal camps. We still donate to them. We have family members who still donate to them in
Mm.
Hallie's memory and our kids' honor. It's just such a phenomenal organization. If anyone's looking for a camp and you have a kid with a medical issue, look at the hole in the wall camps. They're all
Mhm.
over the country. So it's just a phenomenal program.
Have B or Neely ever talked about that week?
Neely and I have, and how they don't look back and remember it as Hallie had just died.
Okay.
They look back and remember it as camp, and I think because they had attended camp before, they talked about how proud they were of riding a horse. It was both their
Mm.
first time riding a horse.
So it was more moments versus that was the
Mhm.
time after.
Yeah, and I think so many people at camp were aware of what happened that they tried to make them feel as special as possible, and they did a
How
good
much
job.
does that mean to you as their mom?
A lot.
Mm,
It was nice to hear their laughter and see their smile, because they were afraid to smile and laugh after Hallie died because
mhm,
they thought it was, like, not honoring her or because we weren't laughing anymore, at the time.
mhm.
I was in a really dark place then, so being able to see them come home and laugh and talk and bring mementos and, they had each made a little, painting project for Hallie. They
Mm,
worked with both the kids to paint a rock for Hallie to go in the rock garden. They
that
did
was
a
nice.
lot of special things, so as a mom, it was a gift to our
It's like
family.
they had grief support in their own way.
Yeah, yeah, and, they didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've mentioned that each of your kids experienced Boggy differently. If you had to describe what they each found there, what do you think you would
Mm,
say?
a great question. I think for Hallie, Boggy Creek gave her confidence because
Mhm.
she was able to do an infusion without us. She was able to
Okay.
be okay without us, and it allowed her just be more confident in going into middle school and high school and go do things, and she felt like she was capable. It really built her
Mhm.
self-confidence.
I like that,
Um,
capable.
yeah. So her confidence was probably the biggest thing it did for her. For B, I would say they were already confident and wild and
Mm,
crazy, but I think it allowed B a sense of normalcy that they
mhm.
didn't get at home because of the immune deficiency, and B had
Yeah.
been getting sick so much, got their Make-A-Wish granted at 5.5, 6 years old due to being so sick that
Mhm.
I think they just got to be a kid and
Well, at
be
home, they
playful.
were one of 3. All of them were sick, but then when they were around friends and family, they were the only one, where
Yeah.
when they go to Camp Boggy Creek, they're one of hundreds.
Well, and they're just there to
Mm,
play. I think for B, it was all play, and I think I as a mom, I was always like, "Are you feeling okay? Like, don't forget your medicine." I was
yeah,
kinda that protector, which is normal looking back,
right.
but B got I guess a better word would be freedom. Hallie got
Yeah, I was
confident.
thinking that's the word I thought of when you said that. I was like, "It sounds like he got that freedom to be a kid."
Yeah, and just be free from me. When you have a medical mama, we can be overbearing, you know?
Mm,
So I think B of all 3 really appreciated that freedom, from being around
mhm,
me and the medical community, and the freedom to just be themselves and be a kid, like you
yeah.
said. So, yeah, freedom would be their word, Hallie would be confidence, Neely would be inclusion. I think for Neely, she was always on the outsider when she was younger because B and Hallie were always the sickest and were already
Yeah.
diagnosed.
They required a lot more.
Yeah, and she would do soccer and could go out and do things, but as her numbers dropped and she started getting infections, I think she had said she had secretly hoped she would get sick sometime just to get the attention, and then when she
Mhm.
got it, she was like, "Why did I ever wish this?"
Yeah.
So I think she just felt like, "I'm part of this family, I'm included because I'm like them." I think she felt a disconnect not having that diagnosis, not that she wants it, trust me,
Right,
but
right.
it just felt like she was part of a team that she didn't know she was a part of.
Mhm.
How about
Mm.
you? What was your family's experience with Boggy?
I think for us, it was very different because Morgan wasn't able to attend sleepaway camp. The rheumatologist suggested we try one of the family weekends in the
Mhm,
fall, right when she was hitting that age of when they could go. They're
mhm,
like, "You really should try it." But because of the cognitive delays and other diagnoses, I just didn't feel comfortable and I didn't think she would do well at sleepaway. So they suggested us to try one of their family weekends in the fall. They do them in the fall and the spring. You
mhm,
just have to find a weekend that is hosting your diagnosis. But it would be an opportunity for Morgan to be a camper, with lots of supports and with her family.
Mhm.
So we got in and we were assigned a cabin for the 6 of us,
Oh,
and
all
they
6 of you
gave us
went.
yeah, they gave us, 3 volunteers, so a one-on-one for Morgan and then the other 2. One was a boy because we had Matthew and then another girl, and the kids had a blast.
Oh,
Lot of fun memories from that weekend, and we only were able to attend it once because as we started getting older, we were so busy every
but
weekend with the other kids' sports.
what a great experience then. I didn't know you all
Yeah,
went.
it was a lot of fun. I think one of my favorite memories wasn't even one of the activities. It was sitting with other parents who just understood. They had activities for the parents while the kids were with the camp counselors. So it was just nice to not have to explain medications or why you were there or why Morgan couldn't do certain things. We were just families enjoying a weekend together. And I remember thinking, I wish everyone could experience this feeling.
Yeah. I was so thankful that Kelly told us about it. We didn't hear it from doctors, but we heard it from someone who had been a counselor there and knew our family, and
Yeah,
I think that was special to have that experience and have people who find the right families and refer them because it is a
yeah.
community where you don't have to explain yourself.
It's a really special experience, and I am so grateful that we were able to have it because it also provided the siblings an opportunity to meet other
Yeah,
siblings also that weren't sick. And Katie learned how to do archery, and she became really like excited about archery. So for Christmas that year, we had to buy her archery stuff. So they each, had their
had
thing.
their
We couldn't do horses; they were kind of bummed because the horses weren't available on the weekends. But overall, I think it was truly memorable. We still talk about it. They did a talent show the last day,
Yes, I
and
love that part.
yeah, and both girls participated, which was so not like them. So I feel like, all 4 kids got something out of it, and Steven and I both did.
Oh, I never heard the story. I didn't know all 6 of you went. I thought maybe you took
Mhm.
the kids. I didn't realize.
Yeah, yeah.
That's so cool. I just love Boggy Creek and the memories they offer and the support they provide kids.
How do you think Boggy Creek changed your kids' perspective of being a kid with medical complexities once they came home the first time?
I think especially for Hallie, but it gave him that confidence. You mentioned archery.
Mhm.
Hallie loved archery. Like, if you had to tell me my kid would have found one activity, I would have thought
Yeah.
it was beadwork or dancing. It was archery. She would go there for all her free time, and they had those spring-loaded, so it was easier, and she
Yeah.
could pull it back. So even with her low tone, she really, really loved
Mhm.
that. So I think it challenged her and all my kids to try new things, to
Mhm.
not set limits on themselves. And I
Yeah,
think
not worry about what they can't do.
right,
Mm,
and they're constantly told what they can't do, or they're focused on their limitations, even in therapy, and they have to focus on what they can't do so they can strengthen those
right.
muscles and give them opportunities. But I think Boggy Creek throws all everything to
Yeah.
the wind and says, "Jump in a boat, we're gonna row." "Really? Okay." Or, "We're
Yeah.
gonna try archery." Things I would never have thought to challenge my kids, they did. So, it's super fun to see that we got those experience, and for us, after having lost Hallie, to know that she got those opportunities that I
Mhm.
wouldn't have thought to give her just makes me super happy. I don't think she would have been as confident in her skin if it hadn't been for Boggy Creek. I remember Hallie snorts a lot, used to snort all the time. And Nurse Kelly would be like, "Embrace the snort." And I used to try and be like, "Hallie, you gotta fit in, like, you shouldn't do that." And here are the nurses going, "Embrace the snort, embrace the snort." And so she had snorted, and on the way home, she goes, "Mom, I learned I'm embracing everything about me. I like me."
That's
And
sweet.
it was so cool, and then I remember in her teen years, I went to youth group with her one night, and we were dancing at youth group, and Hallie loved to dance, anyone that knew her. And in high school and middle school, late middle school, all the girls are trying to impress boys, and boys are
Right.
trying to be cool, and nobody's dancing, and I'm like, "Hallie," and Hallie's sitting there dancing it up, and has
Yeah.
rhythm, I don't, and I lean over and I go, "Hallie, No one else is dancing. Maybe we should tone it down." And she goes, "Mom, maybe if you stop worrying about what other people thought of you, you'd enjoy church a little bit more and dance a little bit more." And I was like, "Oh,
Ooh,
shit." And so I
yeah.
was like, "Screw it." We were the only 2 dancing in church, and everybody was staring at us, but I think she learned that from Boggy Creek and the Embrace the Snort lesson, so
Well, it definitely became a place that we'll always be grateful for. But it wasn't the only place we found joy, but it definitely was one of the first.
absolutely, and I think it's something I didn't realize in the beginning as
Mhm.
our kids grew and new opportunities seemed to find us. Maybe not always when we expected them, but they were there, and Boggy was just kinda one of those starts for us, and Girl Scout camping and those type of opportunities kinda were some of
Yeah,
those
exactly.
catalysts.
But then we found buddy ball and we found aquatic therapy and adaptive activities. And it seemed like every season brought something different. Like you said, the opportunities just all of a sudden just start finding you just by conversations you have with other families, conversations you have with your doctors and providers. And some things lasted for years and other things just for a little while. Like buddy ball, we tried once. um, she had fun, and then Matthew had fun because he got to be a helper at Buddy Ball.
Oh,
So,
and he loved
you know,
baseball.
but every one of them gave our kids another chance to have fun and just enjoy being kids. And I think some of our favorite family vacations originated from the juvenile arthritis conferences every summer.
Yeah, you guys did that a lot. What did you love most about those?
We loved finding other families that were similar to us. We learned a lot about managing her arthritis from other shared experiences. I remember the kids would have almost like a camp environment, so they would get dropped off based on their age. We didn't do that as much with Morgan. Stephen would stay with her while I went to some of the seminars, and throughout the day, there'd be a calendar tell you, okay, this time is about eye disease with arthritis. So you could go and learn more about different things throughout
That were
the
relevant to Morgan's.
So I would go to those. My other kids would go with all the other kids and they'd have activities. It was basically camp, and Morgan and Steven would go swimming or go find something to do together. But I do feel like we made some great connections. Rochelle,
Mhm.
our previous guest, and my other kids just got as much out of the trips as Morgan did. They made friends, they bonded with other siblings, they bonded with other kids that had arthritis.
You
So
got to
all in
stay
all,
at a hotel, which is
yeah.
always fun when you're a kid, and
We flew to California, we went to Colorado,
well, you guys did all the big
did a
conferences.
couple. We did them, like, every other year for a bit until we just got so busy with the younger kids, all their activities, and then we had summers in Massachusetts that we would do. So, even though our summers didn't always look the same, we've had some pretty incredible experiences that we wouldn't have had the privilege to do without Morgan having medical complexities,
That's the
ironically
truth.
enough.
Yeah, you get a different level of experiences in summer fun. It's not something I'd trade, like, I'd give healthy kids for all
Right.
those, but if you're gonna find the good in it and focus on the good, those are some beautiful experiences that you can't
Mhm.
trade, for the life you guys have, and you even got very involved, didn't you, and started helping with some of the camp activities at the conference in Orlando?
Yeah, the Orlando one, because it was hosted in Florida, they
The
get
local
local
chapters.
volunteers. Yeah, and I was asked to run the children's program with another lady. She wasn't affiliated with the Arthritis Foundation. She was just a friend of Rochelle's that was
Oh,
a
I didn't
speech
know that.
therapist. So she and I designed the program from preschool till high school.
I remember you doing that. You
Yeah.
put so
It was a
much
lot of work,
into it.
but it was awesome. You plan the whole entire year. You meet all the time. You're on calls all the time. But when you see it all come to fruition, it was pretty awesome.
And see families benefit from those things that you
Mhm.
plan, knowing how much it means to families because 'cause you've been through
Yeah.
it. That's so cool.
Mm.
Some of those are great, huge events that our kids have cherished memories from, and some our kids maybe just watching them make a friend or seeing them try something new. And for me, it was even sometimes the summer fun was hearing them laugh on the ride home from a friend's house,
Yeah.
giggling or goofing off and bonding as siblings, and it's kinda nice to treasure those little things. And I think when you have kids with chronic medical issues and have life and death conditions, I don't know, maybe you do view the world a little differently, but those arguments in the back seat or those giggling fests, like, you hold on to them because
Mhm.
it's like, these are memories and we may not have these, and so I think you get a different perspective or appreciation maybe on your kid's childhood, and
Yeah, you tend to value and hold them close, and you wanna lock in those memories.
yeah, and if they spill ice cream on a car seat, it's like,
Oh, well.
"Alright, it is what it is at this point." Yeah.
Right. You do, you pick your challenges,
Yeah,
but I think too when you're navigating a life that we've lived, it's easy to believe that opportunities are gonna get smaller. But for us, they just look different, and we
mhm,
found new communities, new friends, people who understood our families in ways we didn't know we needed.
mhm.
And I think sharing these are important because it allows other people to open up and have the dreams and don't suppress expectations, say, why not?
Absolutely. And looking back, as with any family, but especially when you have medical challenges, some summers were harder than others.
Mm,
Some there was a kid in the hospital a lot, and other times there were more pool days than appointments. But when I look back, that's not always what I remember first. I remember, some of the fun stuff. Not having to pack a lunchbox, for God's sakes, that was so exciting, and just getting to treasure I was one of those weird moms, I love my kids home at summer, I love spending time
I
with
do too. Well, and
and
I remember the people and the experiences, all those little adventures, going for the little ride because they're driving you crazy, so you pop them all
yes.
in the car and you go see the horses on sterns.
Yeah.
It's those memories that made us smile, because when you look back at some of the things, those are the things that I remember. I don't remember every little time that we had to give something up because Morgan was sick, and
Mhm,
the kids don't either, and
mhm,
that's what I realized after this whole conversation and when we started talking about this, that in the moment, it feels a lot and it feels heavy when you are having to give up some stuff because you feel guilty that the other kids have to give it up. But in the end, that's not what they remember
mhm.
from their childhood. They remember more the happy things.
And the experiences we create from the life that we have right now in the moment, right?
Mhm,
And I hope that if someone's listening today and they're still trying to figure out what summer looks like for their family, they know
mhm.
that there's not just one way to make memories for them and their family and their children.
Yeah, because sometimes you find them at camp, like a Boggy Creek or
Mhm.
or through the adaptive programs, or sometimes you'll find them in the backyard pool.
Yeah,
But you never really know what's waiting around the corner.
absolutely. Absolutely. And we'd love to hear from you about the places that have become part of your family's story. Does it look different? And what does that look like for you? Maybe it's
Mhm,
a camp, maybe it's a sports program or a tradition you've created in your own home.
mhm.
Share it with us. We're always looking for ways to encourage other families and maybe introduce someone to an opportunity they didn't even know existed,
Yeah, because sometimes the best memories are the ones you never saw coming.
like this podcast. I love it. This is Strength Happens. Thank you for joining us.